If someone pulls away from you and you chase them, you lose every single time. But here is what nobody tells you. Sometimes pulling away is not rejection. Sometimes it is the most backwards, confusing, frustrating way an avoidant person has of saying they actually care about you. And if you do not know how to read the signs, you will walk away from the one person who was already falling for you. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes I am going to show you exactly what an avoidant looks like when they are in love. Not when they like you, not when they find you interesting, when they are genuinely, deeply already in love with you. And I promise you, by the end of this, everything that confused you about this person is going to start making a whole lot of sense. Before we go further, if you are watching this and you have someone in your life who runs hot and cold, who disappears and then comes back like nothing happened, who seems terrified of how much they feel for you, drop the word avoidant in the comments right now. And subscribe, because the next video is going to go even deeper into how to actually handle these relationships without losing yourself in the process. Now, let us get into it. First, you need to understand something fundamental about the way an avoidant person is wired. And I mean really understand it. Not just intellectually. I mean understand it in a way that changes how you react to them. Because right now, if you are like most people, you are reading their behavior through the lens of a secure attachment style. You see distance and you think rejection. You see silence and you think disinterest. You see them pulling back and you think they do not care. But that is the wrong lens entirely. An avoidant person did not just wake up one day and decide to be complicated. They were taught, usually very early in life, that getting too close to someone is dangerous. That love comes with pain attached to it. That if you let someone all the way in, eventually they are going to hurt you, leave you, or make you feel like too much. So they built walls, not to keep you out specifically. They built those walls long before you came along, and those walls have been their protection for years, maybe decades. Now here you are, and something about you got through. Maybe it was your confidence. Maybe it was the way you made them feel seen without being suffocating. Maybe it was just timing, but something cracked the armor. And now they are terrified, not because they do not want you. Terrified because they do. And wanting someone that much feels like the most dangerous thing in the world to a person with an avoidant attachment style. So what does that actually look like? What are the real signs that an avoidant person is in love with you? Let me walk you through them one by one. The first sign is that they come back. Every single time. You know the cycle. They get close, they feel it getting real, they pull back, they go quiet, they create distance, and you sit there wondering if it is over. And then they come back. They text you out of nowhere. They call to check in. They show up. Not always dramatically. Sometimes it is something small, a meme they thought of you, a song that reminded them of something you said. Hey, how are you doing? That sounds casual, but actually took them 20 minutes to decide to send. This is not a game they are playing with you. This is not manipulation, at least not intentionally. This is them being pulled back to you by something they cannot fully control. Avoidants are very comfortable being alone. They have spent most of their lives being alone by choice. If they keep coming back to you, it means you have become something they cannot easily replicate or replace. That is not nothing. That is actually everything. The second sign is that they remember everything you say. And I mean everything. Avoidants are experts at emotional detachment. They have been practicing it their whole lives. When they are not invested in someone, conversations go in one ear and out the other. They are polite, they are present enough, but they are not really absorbing. But when they are in love with you, they remember the little things. The name of your childhood dog, the way you take your coffee, that thing you mentioned once, weeks ago, about a difficult situation at work. They bring it up later almost casually, like it is nothing. But it is not nothing. It means they were listening. Really listening. It means you have taken up real estate in their mind that they do not give to just anyone. In fact, they would probably give it to almost no one else. The fact that they are holding on to the details of your life means you matter to them in a way they probably have not admitted to themselves yet. The third sign is that they get irrationally irritated with you. Now, I know this sounds strange. Bear with me. When an avoidant person is in love with you, they feel things more intensely than they are comfortable with. And intense feelings make them uncomfortable. And discomfort in an avoidant very often comes out sideways, as irritation, as being short with you, as getting annoyed over things that seem disproportionate to the situation. This is not them being mean. This is emotional leakage. They cannot always express what they are feeling directly because direct vulnerability feels too dangerous. So the feeling comes out in other ways. If they were completely indifferent to you, they would not be irritated. Indifferent people are not irritated. They are just indifferent. The irritation means they care. It means something you did or said got under their skin in a way they were not expecting. And that level of impact only happens when someone matters to you deeply. The fourth sign is that they protect you even when they are pulling away. This one is subtle and so easy to miss. When an avoidant is in love with you, they might be emotionally unavailable. They might be creating distance. They might be going through one of their withdrawal phases, but they will still show up in practical ways. They will make sure you got home safe. They will mention something they think you should be careful about. They will quietly handle something for you without making a big deal of it. They are doing this because they cannot yet bring themselves to say, "I love you," or "I am scared of how much I feel for you." But they can do things. Actions feel safer than words to an avoidant. So pay attention to what they do more than what they say, or what they do not say. The actions tell the real story. And if they are protecting you while simultaneously keeping their emotional distance, that is actually a deeply conflicted person trying to love you in the only language they currently feel safe speaking. The fifth sign is that they talk about the future with you, even casually. Avoidants do not do future talk with people they are not serious about. They live very much in the present when it comes to relationships. They protect their future because the future represents commitment, and commitment represents potential loss. So if an avoidant person mentions something you could do together next month, or references something you said you wanted to do and says, "We should do that," that is not a throwaway comment. That is them placing you in their future. That is a massive deal for someone whose whole operating system has been built around protecting their independence and keeping their emotional exits clear. The sixth sign is that they get weird when you talk about other people. Now, I am not saying they get aggressively jealous. Avoidants are very good at appearing unbothered on the surface. But watch closely. When you mention another person who might be interested in you, or when you talk about spending time with someone else, there is a shift, a tightening, a very brief moment where their composure slips just a little. They might ask a few too many questions about this other person. They might go quiet in a way that is different from their normal quiet. They might suddenly become more attentive to you right after you mention it. This is jealousy that they are working very hard to suppress, because admitting jealousy means admitting they want you, and admitting they want you makes them vulnerable. And vulnerability is terrifying, but the feeling is there. It is leaking out around the edges even when they are trying their hardest to keep it contained. And jealousy only exists in the presence of love. You cannot be jealous over someone you do not care about. The seventh sign is that they open up to you in layers, not all at once, not in one big emotional conversation. But over time, you start to notice that they have told you things they do not tell other people. It happens slowly. Maybe they mentioned something about their childhood once and then got quiet and changed the subject. Maybe they told you about a failure they experienced and then seemed almost surprised that they told you. Maybe they have shared something about their family, their fears, their past in those small moments where their guard drops just enough for something real to slip through. This is enormous. Avoidants guard their inner world like it is the most precious thing they own, because in a way it is. Their inner world is the place they retreated to when the outer world felt unsafe. When they let you into that world, even a little bit, even briefly, they are showing you something they show almost no one. Do not take that for granted. Do not push for more than they are ready to give. Just notice it, appreciate it, because every layer they share with you is a conscious or semi-conscious act of trust. The eighth sign is that they mirror your energy more than they do with anyone else. Avoidants are usually very good at keeping a certain emotional tone, controlled, measured, not too high, not too low. It is part of how they manage their feelings. But with you, when you are laughing, they laugh more freely than usual. When you are serious, they engage more deeply than they typically would. When you are warm, you can see them soften in ways that maybe other people in their life never see. This mirroring is not something they are doing consciously. It is happening because you have gotten under their emotional skin. They are responding to you in an almost involuntary way. Their usual emotional regulation is slightly off when you are around. That is love doing what love does. It disrupts patterns. It gets past the defenses. It makes people behave differently than they normally would. The ninth sign is that they check in even when they are in withdrawal mode. Here is what most people do not understand about the avoidant withdrawal cycle. When an avoidant pulls away, they are not sitting in their cave thinking about how little they care about you. They are actually often overwhelmed by how much they feel. The withdrawal is a decompression. It is them trying to manage the intensity of the feelings they have for you by creating temporary distance. And here is the telling sign. Even during that withdrawal, if they are in love with you, they will still check in. It might be minimal. A quick message, a like on something you posted, a very brief moment of contact that says, "I am still here." They are not fully able to cut the connection because the connection means too much to them. They are just trying to breathe. And they keep reaching back out because they cannot quite let go. Because letting go would mean admitting that this is over, and some part of them is not ready for that. The 10th sign is that they push you away but panic when they think you might actually leave. This is the most painful and revealing sign of all. You have probably experienced this. You get tired of the hot and cold. You pull back yourself. Maybe you start to seem less available, less invested, less certain about where things stand. And suddenly the avoidant who was creating all this distance becomes very present. They reach out more. They suddenly want to define things. They seem almost destabilized. This is the paradox at the heart of avoidant attachment. They push for distance, but they panic at the thought of actual loss, because pushing for distance is something they initiate and therefore something they control. But you actually leaving is something they cannot control. And the thought of losing you, when they are genuinely in love with you, cuts through all the defenses, all the carefully maintained independence, all the walls. And what you see in that moment of panic is the truest version of how they feel about you. Now, here is what I want to talk to you about next. And this is crucial because knowing all of these signs is only one part of the equation. The other part, the harder part, is knowing what to do with this information. Because you might be reading this right now and nodding along, recognizing your person in every single one of these signs, and feeling a mix of relief and frustration. Relief because, okay, they do care, but frustration because caring is apparently not enough for them to just show up fully and love you in a way that feels consistent and safe. And here is where I need to be completely honest with you. You cannot fix an avoidant. Let me say that again because it is important. You cannot fix an avoidant. You cannot love them into security. You cannot be patient enough or understanding enough or available enough to rewrite years of emotional conditioning. That is not your job. And trying to make it your job will exhaust you and ultimately destroy both of you. What you can do is understand them well enough to respond in ways that do not trigger their defenses. And there is a significant difference between those two things. Understanding does not mean fixing. It means navigating. It means choosing your responses strategically rather than reactively. Because the way most people respond to avoidant behavior actually makes the avoidant more avoidant. The more you chase, the more they run. The more you express anxiety or need or urgency, the more suffocated they feel. The more you demand emotional availability, the more shut down they become. So what actually works? Consistency without pressure. This is the environment where an avoidant can begin to feel safe enough to actually let you in more fully. Not guaranteed, but possible. When you are consistently warm and present without being demanding or anxious, you become something that is very rare in their experience. You become a safe person. And safe people are incredibly powerful in the life of someone who has never felt truly safe in relationships. Maintaining your own life matters enormously here. Not as a strategy, not as a tactic to make them chase you, but because a person who has their own rich, full, independent life is inherently less threatening to an avoidant. They do not feel like you need them to survive. And that is less pressure. Avoidants feel crushed under the weight of being someone else's everything. When you are clearly your own person with your own priorities and your own happiness that does not depend entirely on them, You become someone they can get closer to without feeling like the relationship is going to swallow them whole. Respond to their actions more than their withdrawals. When they reach out, be warm and genuine. When they pull back, do not chase. Do not punish either. Just live your life. Let them come back to you on their own. Because the avoidant who comes back to you on their own is choosing you. And a person choosing you freely is so much more valuable than a person you cornered into staying. Hold your standards. This is the one most people get wrong. They think being understanding of avoidant behavior means tolerating anything and everything. It does not. You can understand why someone behaves the way they do and still have clear limits about what you will and will not accept in your own life. In fact, having those limits and being willing to enforce them is one of the most attractive things to an avoidant who is falling in love. It signals that you have value that you are aware of, that you are not desperate for their attention, that you can take care of yourself. Those qualities do not push avoidance away, they pull them in. Have the direct conversations when the moment is right, not when emotions are running high, not in the middle of a withdrawal, but when things are calm, when they are present, when you sense they are more open. Be simple and clear about what you need, not as an ultimatum, as an honest expression of what works for you. Something like, I care about you and I need to understand what we are doing here, is very different from, why are you always pulling away from me and making me feel terrible? One is an invitation. The other is a pressure bomb. Avoidants can respond to invitations. They shut down under pressure. Now, I want to talk about something that does not get discussed enough in these kinds of conversations. And it is the question of what you deserve in all of this. Because yes, understanding avoidant attachment is valuable. And yes, knowing how to navigate this kind of relationship wisely is important. But none of that changes the basic truth that you deserve to feel loved in ways that feel good to you. Not just in ways that someone else is capable of right now, but in ways that actually nourish you and make you feel secure and happy. There is a version of this where you learn all of this, you apply it with grace and patience and wisdom, and the avoidant person in your life slowly becomes more available, more open, more capable of giving you what you need. That happens. It is real. It is worth pursuing if you genuinely care about this person and you see real growth and real effort on their part. But there is also a version of this where you pour all of yourself into understanding someone who is not doing the equivalent work on themselves, where you become so focused on managing the dynamic that you forget to check in on whether this relationship is actually giving back to you, where patience becomes a way of telling yourself the story that everything is going to be fine when actually you have been waiting for years for things to fundamentally change, and they have not. Both versions are real. And only you can know which version you are in. So I want you to ask yourself honestly, is this person showing signs of actual growth? Are they more open with you now than they were 6 months ago? Do they acknowledge the dynamic in any way, even imperfectly? Are they making any effort, however small, to meet you where you are? If the answer is yes, even partially yes, that is something to work with. Growth in an avoidant is rarely linear and it is often frustratingly slow, but it is real and it is worth acknowledging. If the answer is no, if things are exactly the same or getting worse, if they show no awareness of the impact of their behavior and no inclination to work on it, then the most self-respecting thing you can do is to decide what that means for you, not dramatically, not with an ultimatum you are not prepared to follow through on, but with a quiet clarity about what you are choosing and what you are not choosing. Because here is the thing about avoidance and love. They are capable of it, deeply, intensely, beautifully capable of it. The attachment style does not make someone broken or unlovable. It makes them complicated. And complicated is not the same as impossible, but complicated requires two people who are both willing to do the work. The avoidant has to be willing to look at themselves, to tolerate the discomfort of getting closer, to push against their own conditioning even when it terrifies them. And you have to be willing to understand without losing yourself, to be patient without being a pushover, to love them wisely rather than desperately. When both of those things are happening, something really beautiful can emerge. A relationship that is hard-won and therefore deeply valued. A level of trust that means something because it was built slowly and carefully. An intimacy that is real because it was chosen again and again by someone who had every instinct telling them to run. That is what an avoidant in love actually looks like over time. Not just the confusing mixed signals in the beginning, but the person who, once they feel truly safe, loves you with an intensity and a loyalty that is almost overwhelming, because they have been protecting that love for a long time. And when they finally decide to give it, they give it completely. So if you are in the early stages of this, in the confusing hot and cold, and what does this even mean stage, here is what I want you to take from this. The signs are there. The love is probably there. Your job right now is not to fix them or chase them or convince them. Your job is to be someone worth coming back to be secure enough in yourself that their anxiety does not become your anxiety, to be warm enough that they feel safe and boundaried enough that they respect you. That combination, warmth and self-respect together, is the most powerful thing you can bring to a relationship with an avoidant. Not because it is a trick or a technique, but because it is the genuine expression of someone who knows their own value and is willing to share themselves without surrendering themselves. And an avoidant who is genuinely in love with you, they will feel that. They will come toward it. Maybe slowly, maybe with some backward steps along the way, but they will come. Because here is the truth that all of these signs are pointing toward. When an avoidant falls in love, they fall hard. The person they let past the wall is the person they think about constantly, the person they protect without being asked, the person they come back to every single time, the person they panic over the thought of losing. That is not a small thing. That is actually one of the most profound things a person with that kind of history can offer. So pay attention to the signs. Not to obsess over them or analyze every single interaction to death, but to understand what you are actually looking at. Because if you can see clearly what is really happening, you can respond from a place of strength rather than fear. And responding from strength is how you get the best possible outcome with someone who is already in love with you, but terrified to show it. The clearest sign of all, the one that sits underneath every single thing I have described today, is this. They keep choosing to be in your life even when everything inside them is telling them to protect themselves by walking away. That is the avoidant in love. Staying when staying is hard. Coming back when coming back is vulnerable. Letting you matter even when mattering is the most frightening thing they know how to do. That is love. Messy and backwards and confusing, but love all the same. And now that you can see it for what it is, you have a choice about what to do with it. A real choice. An informed one. And that ultimately is the most powerful place to be in any relationship.